Hello, it's Rudy Lewis here. I guess I'm graduate from the Human Nutrition Program at Johns Hopkins School of Public Health, Bloomberg School of Public Health here in Baltimore. And today I'm just coming to you again. I would like to speak to you today about trans fats. Recently, they have been banned from food products, from processed food products. Trans fats have been banned. I mean, over the years, the research has sort of piled up, and it's obvious that trans fats cause a lot of harm to our health. And so, I just wanted to talk a little bit about trans fats today. Now, trans fats, they were sort of introduced to our processed food, into our food system in like the early 1900s. It was introduced then. I mean, it was a way of introducing vegetable oils into the diet. A lot of vegetable oils weren't being used. We were using a lot of butter and lard, but as those forms of oil come from animals, they're a little more expensive. And at a time when there was a low supply of butter fat, we started to use the trans fats that had been invented years earlier. And so trans fats basically is when you take the vegetable oils, from safflower, from sunflower seeds, from cotton seeds, from soybean oil, from soybeans, from peanuts, and basically you pull the oils from them, and what you do with those oils is you add in hydrogen with the help of what they call with the catalyst, something that sort of pulls apart the carbon chains there, and so what happens is they form trans fats. And so basically, the vegetable oils have double bonds instead. So when you take butter, something that's saturated, it has the maximum amount of hydrogens, and so basically it's just carbon and hydrogen basically lined up, stacked together. And with vegetable oils, what you have is you don't have the maximum amount of hydrogens there. You have their poly and mono unsaturated. And so what happens there is you got double bonds between carbon chains. Instead of having the maximum amount of hydrogens, you have some double bonds in there. And that makes the oil the liquid form. So it creates a kink in the fatty acid chain, and it makes the oil a liquid form at room temperatures. So when you look at like butter, which is saturated with hydrogen, it can sit really tight. And so at room temperature, it's a solid, and you have to add heat to really melt it down. But with vegetable oils, they stay liquid because of the nature of those double bonds inside of the carbon chain, the carbon hydrogen chains. And so what they did with vegetable oils to make it more solid, to make it seem more like butter, more like lard, they started to add hydrogens in with the help of a catalyst, a chemical catalyst. And what happens is the vegetable oil became less liquid. It became a soft, almost buttery type of fat, and so we started using that. And so it's like margins and things like that. We were able to use the vegetable oils, which is a cheaper form of oil, um, in place of say butter and lard, which are derived from animals, so they're a little more expensive. And so we started using those in our food products, and we found that they work quite well because they're more stable. They don't go as rancid as fast, with normal vegetable oils because of those double bonds. Oxygen can come in and really oxidize those type of fats, and they become rancid. And so as you take away some of those double bonds, you get more of a stable product. It doesn't go rancid as fast. So with your processed foods, your cakes, your baked goods that you or your chips, or different foods that you eat, you want to you don't want them to go bad too fast, or companies don't want them to go bad too fast. These processed foods, if you use something like the trans fat product, it'll last much longer, and the properties of it make the texture of say baked goods really really even better than say butter in many cases. So it's better to use those type of fats instead of the vegetable oils. The properties and the fact that it doesn't go rancid, it can stay fresh for a much longer period of time. But as you all know, the big issue and why trans fats have been banned is trans fats. They really, what they do in the body is the body has a bit of difficulty trying to digest and process those trans fats. And what happens is we increase the low density lipoprotein. So that's the so-called bad cholesterol. I don't really like to call one cholesterol bad, one good. We need both of them, But with the LDL, the low density lipoprotein, we increase it too much, and basically that gets into the arteries, and that's when we can get into trouble with atherosclerosis and different coronary, artery blockages and things like that. That's when we can get in trouble with that. So we don't want too much of that. And what happens with the trans fats, they seem to not only increase the LDL, the bad cholesterol, but also decrease the HDL, high density lipoprotein, which is the so-called good cholesterol. This is the cholesterol that takes cholesterol from the arteries and different parts of the body and brings it back to the liver, where it can be redistributed, processed, maybe turned into bile acids or something like that. So we want high HDL because it's taking some of the cholesterol from some of those lipoproteins from the body, from the arteries, so they don't, so the concentration doesn't get so high there that you're at risk for different coronary, artery diseases, coronary artery, or any arteries throughout the body. So basically, we want a higher HDL, and things like exercise will increase HDL. So you want to really keep that higher. But trans fat somehow keeps the HDL lower for some reason. I don't think anybody knows for sure, and it increases the LDL. So it becomes even worse than, say, your regular saturated fatty acid from steaks and from beef, from pork. All those products, are of course higher in the saturated fat. Butter, higher in saturated fat. But see, those products don't necessarily decrease the HDL that your body can produce, while saturated fat somehow keep the HDL lower. And we want to keep the HDL higher and kind of keep the LDL lower. And so that's another issue with the trans fats, and so that's how they cause a lot of this cardiovascular disease, really a high percentage of cardiovascular disease, and that's why they have been banned recently. But really, what I want to stress here, though, is although trans fats have been banned, they're still lurking in many of the foods we eat, and so the trans fats are still a company can produce a product and say it's 0% trans fat per serving if within that serving of whatever food it is, there's only 0.5, about half a gram of trans fats. So basically, if you eat in a lot of these processed foods, you can still be taking in a lot of trans fats. So say if you eat 2 servings of a food for breakfast, lunch, and dinner, and each one says 0% trans fat, which means it can have up to 0.5 grams per serving. You can end up with about, let me do the math, you can end up with about 3 grams, of trans fats. And over years and years of eating that way, you can run into trouble still with the trans fats, and it can have a negative impact on your health. I mean, not as bad as it was before, where a tub of margarine might have been, might have had a high percentage of trans fats in it, Now you're going to see much less. So what they did to replace the trans fats is they're kind of mixing the oils up, where they might use a palm kernel oil, palm fruit oil, something like that, and maybe mix it with your vegetable oil. Because a palm fat a plant will have maybe a percentage of saturated fat and monounsaturated fats, and maybe even some polyunsaturated, but really just the monounsaturated and saturated. And even a coconut oil will have that. So you just sort of mix that with the vegetable oils, and you get sort of a solid product right there. So that's what they're kind of doing that right there, and that technically it is better than having a trans fat in the food product. But I just want to let you know they still are lurking in the food. If you're eating too many of the processed foods, you're still going to get a significant amount of trans fats in your diet, and that's going to have a negative impact over time, and especially among populations. So if you study public health, you're always looking at the population effect, and it still has some of those trans fats lurking inside of your processed foods. So you really want to watch out for how many of these processed foods you're eating, because the trans fats are still lurking there. And a lot of the vegetable oils that are used in in fast food establishments or in corner stores, and especially here in Baltimore, we have a lot of the carryouts where they're reusing oil. And when you take a vegetable oil, and as it goes through processing, and as you use it multiple times, what's happening is your trans fats are building up. Those oils are becoming oxidized and unevenly, and you're producing trans fats. And so you're getting a high amount of trans fats, and that's really not measured in a lot of the new food products they're putting out, because reused oil, is not really measuring that. So if you frequenting, you go into a lot of these carry out stores and buying what we have here, chicken boxes and and French fries and things like that, you could be still taking in a lot of trans fats because they form inside of the oil. So even at home, when you're using a lot of the vegetable oils to fry your fish or your chicken, you don't want to reuse that oil. You want to use it one time and get rid of it because those trans fats will build up. And so I would suggest though in the future, you can still, I think butter and a lot of the lard and those type of products have gotten a bad name. You want to stay away from the Criscos and things like that because they're probably going to have a higher percentage of trans fats. Even though it says 0%, it's still going to have a higher percentage than, like I said, that 0.5 grams per serving. And if you add all those servings up over time, you can get yourself in trouble. So I would say when it comes to frying foods, you don't want to eat that much fried food. But if you do use a vegetable oil, I would go with a canola oil because it's higher in those polyunsaturated fats that are the omega-3 version of those fats. A lot of the other oils, cottonseed, soybean, safflower, they're going to be higher in the omega-6s, which sort of promote inflammation. Like both omega-6 and omega-3 are important, but omega-6s, we get so many of those in the diet, and they're more apt to promote inflammation. So the omega-3s will kind of dampen inflammation, kind of slow that process down. So like a lot of the fish oils and fish products are good for the omega-3s. But in terms of vegetable oils that you fry with, canola oil is a better choice in terms of the amount of omega-3s that has in it. I mean, in general, you don't want to use too much fried food at all. But I mean, in terms of high heat frying, peanut oil, canola oil are better choices. But you really don't want to eat too many fried foods because like even the canola oil is highly refined. You're just really getting the oils. You're not getting a lot of the polyphenols and the other plant chemicals that come with it. If you can, like in low heat cooking, so sauteing, things like that, if you can use the olive oil, extra virgin olive oil is the much better type because with extra virgin olive oil, it's going through one press, and so you have those polyphenols available. That's a good monounsaturated source of fat, so it's more stable than most vegetable oils because it's monounsaturated. It has less double bonds. The more double bonds an oil has, the more unstable it is. The more susceptible to oxygen attack it becomes. So olive oil, great for low heat cooking, but for high heat, you really can't use olive oil. You can use avocado oil, but some people say that affects the flavor of the food that you're eating. I haven't gotten a chance to use avocado oil yet, but that's what I hear with that. Canola oil is a great source even peanut oil is a good source for high heat cooking. Like I said, it has the polyunsaturated fats, the omega-3s, which is a better form of fat than many of the other soybean oils. The regular vegetable oil that you see in stores usually just the seed oil, safflower or sunflower seed oils, and those oils, like I said, more omega-6s, and we already get enough of those in the diet. So for the low heat cooking, try to stick with the extra virgin olive oil, and that's the best form. Like I said, it's going through one press, and so it's more stable. If it's not extra virgin olive oil, what happens is they take the scraps from processing extra virgin olive oil and then they introduce a solvent like a hexane or some type of chemical like that to pull out the rest of those oils. And after that, it has to go through bleaching and deodorizing because when you take it through that process of using hexane and high heat and all those things, you introduce a lot of rancidity and things like that, so it has to be cleaned up, and you introduce some off flavors, off colors, and so you have to bleach it and deodorize it. You don't really want that, so you always want the extra virgin. You want, in terms of the other oils, if you can get expeller pressed, cold pressed, which means they control the temperature. So when they press these oils and these seeds out, it can generate a lot of heat. And that heat is not good in terms of keeping the product stable and keeping it from becoming rancid or oxidized. And if it's already oxidized, those oils get into the body and wreak havoc. So that's another reason why I stress stay away from, try not to eat too much of that corner store food, that fast food, because those oils have been oxidized and they're pretty dirty. They get inside the body and wreak havoc inside the arteries and everywhere. So, and then when you do eat the fried fish at home or whatever, fried chicken, you want to make sure you're taking in lots of antioxidants and polyphenols with that. So you want to have a big salad with your fried chicken, big salad with your fried fish, but in general, you want to limit how much of the fried food products that you are taking into your body, because like I said, the risk for oxidation It's quite serious with the vegetable oils because they aren't as stable. The butter and the lard are more stable. They can withstand oxidative stress a little bit better. And so, although they increase your saturated fat, your low density lipoprotein, they don't get oxidized as fast, so they don't cause that much harm inside the body in that regard. But then again, like I said, once again, they increase the low density lipoprotein in your diet, whereas the polyunsaturated fatty acids are easily oxidized and they can cause harm that way. But they also give you the omega 3s, the omega 6s, those important essential fatty acids, the ones your body cannot produce. They give you those, and those are very important in terms of maintaining your health. So overall, I think the message should be that we want to, of course, limit the amount of fried foods we eat per week, and that includes your French fries, a lot of your fast foods, especially those using those recycled oils. And if you're from a city like Baltimore, those corner stores, the corner store chicken boxes, we call them here, fried chicken, French fries, all of those foods, we really want to limit those because it's a lot of oxidized fats, a lot of trans fats building up, and even some saturated fats within the chicken and the oil that it surrounds it. So we really want to limit those foods in general. But some healthy choices, once again, use of olive oil for low heat cooking, high heat cooking. Peanut oil is not too bad. Canola oil is a better choice. A lot of canola oil is GMO, but they had to do that in order to reduce certain types of polyphenols in it to make it suitable to use for frying and cooking at home. So the canola oil, like I said, it's a better choice, higher in omega 3s, which are a better source of fats for our diet. So for the high heat, stick with the canola and the peanut. For the low heat, stick with the olive oil. In that medium range, you can go with the coconut oil if that's available. That's some high in monounsaturated fats and some saturated fats, and so those are more stable fats. I mean, we just want to lower probably just the regular vegetable oil because that has more omega 6s in it, which promotes that inflammation in the body. If you can find it in your stores, your Whole Foods, you can look for the expeller press, cold pressed expeller press, because when it's lower heat, we have less oxidation. We have a better quality oil products, and that's another reason why you don't reuse those heats that you've used already. They've already gone through that high heat process. They've already generated trans fats and things like that, and so you're putting your body in more harm with that type of with those type of foods right there, with that type of oil. So I just wanted to go over the trans fats. It's a really good thing that they have been banned from the diet, but I just want to let you know that they are still lurking out there. You still got to watch out for them. You still got to be careful with the amount of fried foods you're eating and the type of oils that you are using when you decide to fry foods. Okay, so that's Rudy. I'm Rudy Lewis. I'm signing off now, and I'm glad to be able to inform you guys about what's going on in nutrition and health. Thanks a lot. Goodbye.